welcome to the 10-Minute Manager. In this tutorial we'll be discussing data corrections and analysis, and the best place to start this is at our roster tab. If we zip into the roster, this is something that we'd be performing at the end of every day. What we need to do first of all is change our roster to reflect our true labour costs. So a few things can happen during the course of the day to change the roster. You may very well send someone home early as a manager, or someone may call in sick and may need to be replaced by another employee. All of these things have an influence on your wages during the course of a day, so they need to be entered in there. The other item that you need to be aware of is breaks that you may allocate to your staff as the day progresses. We'll make a few changes here on Monday. Let's have a look at Monday. Let's say Jerry called in sick today. We would highlight Jerry's hours and delete them. And in this instance, we may very well have called in Jim to take his place. So let's say Jim started work at 7 AM and completed work at 1 PM. That's 6 hours work. And in this instance, let's say Jim was also given a half an hour break. To represent a half an hour break, we go up into the bar up here, and half an hour break is recorded as 12:30 AM. Okay, so we'll change that from 12 o'clock, which records no break, to 12:30, which will actually record a half an hour break. So if I press enter now, you'll notice that there's 30-minute break there, and that's come off the actual hours worked. An assumption of the 10-Minute Manager is that half an hour breaks or more are not paid, and that will actually come off your hours worked. Okay, so that's one element that we've changed there with Jim. Another staff member may have a common item with staff is they may be required to work an extra 15 minutes, so we'll make that 12:15, and the actual hours work changed to 6 hours and 15 minutes there. Okay, so now we get a very clear idea of what our wages were for the day, or at least we think so. We've just changed the roster. Now what we need to do is return back to the main page and visit our input center. In our input center, the only way we can have a true indication of what's happening with our wages is if we put our actual income earned for the day. Okay, so in this instance, let's say the cafe Z read was 2,210 with a GST component of 201. Okay, your catering, let's say you did $220 worth of catering, so $20 of that would be GST. And in your bar, you may have done another $200 with $20 worth of GST. Okay, now what we can see here is the gross amount is $2,851. The net amount is $2,610. Okay, automatically our materials cost is adjusted, and we've got 33.33% materials for Monday, which is below our 35% KPI, so we're quite happy with that. But let's have a look at what happened with wages today. So if we click return and visit our roster, you'll see that our wages is now down to 28.7%. Okay, so what we see here is that our wages were below 30% for Monday, so we're quite happy with that. And our material came in at the correct amount also, which is fantastic. Now, given that it's the end of Monday and we had a clearer idea of what's actually happened on Monday, what you may want to do is return back to the input center and potentially change your projection for your revenue for tomorrow. So if you think tomorrow will be very similar to what we did on Monday, you may very well want to say, okay, well, we did approximately 2,200 at the cafe, we did 200 catering, and surprisingly we did 200 at the bar. Okay, now what that automatically does is it changes what your likely KPI will be for your wages on Tuesday. So at the moment you're looking at 27.71%, which is quite good if you're aiming to be under 30%. You would need to have a look at that and ask yourself, am I staffed correctly? Am I not staffed correctly? if that was, for example's sake, we go back to the input center and say, you know what, I'm not anticipating, a customer came in and told me that the group that visited us on Monday won't be visiting on Tuesday. I'm not anticipating we'll do 2200. I'm actually anticipating I'll do 1900. That will have a great impact on your business. So you would change that amount there on the input center. You would return back to your roster, and you're at 31% now. Now, given that you're at 31%, you may need to tweak your roster somewhat. So we may say that instead of finishing at 12 o'clock, Joe will finish at 11 a.m. That brings it down to 30%. Are we happy with that? We may need to send Joe home at 11 a.m. also. Okay, now we're just below 30%, exactly where we want to be. What, as a manager, I'll now need to do is give Joe a call and give Jay a call and let them both know that they'll be finishing at 11 o'clock tomorrow. Okay, so that's how we use the 10-minute manager to organise our roster for the following day. It's very, very important that it's reviewed on a daily basis and changes are made where necessary. In the instance of materials, if we go back to our input center, our materials were 33% today. You may want to pat your manager or your cook on the back and say, fantastic, good ordering today. Ask them what they're anticipating for their order for the following day or for the rest of the week. It will give you a great idea. What I would encourage you to do is encourage your staff to be involved in this process so they can see what their KPIs are and how much each individual invoice is coming in at, so they can actually control what's going on. Okay, now if we were going to review the week ahead, let's put in some figures here. Let's say $2,000 worth of invoices on Tuesday. Now I'm putting all of that under one supplier, but in reality that would be split amongst various suppliers. But for example's sake, we're just going to do that roughly right now. Okay, so each day I'm allocating an amount, a total amount of invoices in there. Okay, so Friday we'll say we had $50 and $5 GST. On Saturday I had $110 GST, and on Sunday I didn't have any stock delivered at all. Okay, let's for example's sake say that this is what our week looks like. We'll change a few actual figures here. Let's say on this day we did 2,500, 3,000, 1,500, and let's say we did do 2,000 that day with $200 GST. Okay, so that's what our week looks like. Ordinarily, again, we would enter in catering amounts and revenue from the bar on every single day. We won't do that in this particular example, but that's something that you would be doing. You'd be entering an amount in for every revenue center. Okay, the other items that you would be entering in, information that's often provided to you by your cash register, are your covers. So let's say you had 100 covers at your cafe, you did 5 catering jobs, and you had 20 bar services on that day. 120, 6 and 2, 400, 1 and 7, 100, 6, well 3 rather, and 1. And we'll just copy and paste those into the other days there. We'll do that again there. And I may very well just copy and paste our catering and bar revenue in on each day also. So we've got a full list of data that we can work with. Highlight that, copy and paste. Okay, so now we've got our week as it looks at the end of the week. We have a total materials percentage, or an average thereof, of 34.35%, which is exactly where we want to be. And this really isn't a bad example. You can see on Monday you had 33% of turnover spent on materials. On Tuesday, 86%. Wednesday was obviously a very heavy ordering day. Thursday was very light. Friday very light at 1.47. Saturday very light, and on Sunday we didn't order anything. Okay, so at the end of the week we did make our KPI, which is exactly what we were after. Okay, so that's examining our materials as a percentage of turnover. At the end of the week you would also want to examine your roster, and you can see on most days you've come in below 30%, 28%, 29%, 36% on Wednesday, 32% on Thursday, 27% on Friday, 32% on Saturday, and 12% on Sunday. Okay, so you would really need to sit down and speak with your manager about what happened on the Wednesday with wages, Thursday on wages, and Saturday with wages, and where possible find a solution to get those wages down to exactly where they need to be. That's a quick rundown on the data analysis and correction of daily data inputs into the 10-Minute Manager. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you.